Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're taking a look at the new Games Workshop price increase. This video is sponsored by CMO Games. More on that later. Alright, so we got the new price increases gone into effect. We had a pretty good idea what to expect. Games Workshop announced 3 to 5% price increases. We've already seen some of them coming out on the new pre-releases. So let's take a look at what this actually translates to and how it's going to affect the game. So we have our regular starter sets right here. So $210 for the ultimate starter set. This one is a really good deal. There's a ton of good stuff in it, a lot of value. And then we had the regular starter set. Not quite as good, no terrain in the set, but still a good jumping off point at $112. And then we have the introductory set. This one has the paints, the clippers, a little brush, and then just a few models. So overall, these haven't really changed a lot. Still nice value, still a lot of models or what you need to get rolling with. So not really a big difference there. All right, and then moving on to the combat patrols. This is for a lot of people like the jumping off point to a new army. And these were previously priced at $168, so they went up by $8, which is about a 5% price increase. And in my opinion, this is the worst decision Games Workshop could have made. We've seen over the last few months as the new combat patrols have been rolling out, they pulled out a lot of the big pieces. They have substantially decreased the value in most of these sets, down closer to about $225 in MSRP. So now priced at $168, you're basically saving on average about 25%. Now it is good because that gives you 25% off of the box sets, assuming you wanted everything inside. But if you weren't going to purchase all of the models inside these sets, a lot of the value immediately diminishes. And then on top of that, we saw the shrinkflation on top of the price increase, and $168 jumping off point for a new army is definitely a lot. Considering that we recently saw in the last couple years, the start collecting boxes were basically priced at about 80 to $100, and that was your initial start into an army. These tend to have a few more models in the set, but that's basically 68% more expensive. The difference between $100 and $168 is massive. Now that being said, if you still want all the models in a combat patrol, and a couple of the combat patrols have substantially more than $225 in MSRP value, but in my opinion, this is the worst business decision they could have made. Typically what you see businesses do is underprice the entry-level products or the beginner products to get people started into a new faction or into the game. And then once they go to expand, that's where you make the real money. And that's not what Games Workshop is doing here. Raising the prices on these and decreasing the value inside makes it so people don't even get into the game. So then you never get those follow-up purchases, which is where the real money's made. So like I said, some of these boxes still have some really nice value in them, but the majority of the newer ones that have come out in the last couple of years, especially the most recent ones, have seen the MSRP value inside substantially diminish. It doesn't mean that they're not good starting armies. It doesn't mean that they're not decent purchases. Just that the actual value that you get from purchasing them and the savings over MSRP is substantially less. So there's far less incentive to start a new army or specifically to purchase one of these boxes. And overall, the battle forces are still a much better deal. Unfortunately, they're not always offered and they tend to be limited. So this is your option for the best savings from Games Workshop straight out of the catalog or from your local store because you can always get them. So it doesn't mean combat patrols are dead, but they're definitely not nearly as good as they used to be. So at $168 a piece, there's definitely still some that have nice value inside, but oftentimes we find that it's because the actual models included are already inflated on price. So over MSRP, it's a really good deal. Like for instance, the Chaos Demons box, it's also really good because you can use it for 40k and Sigmar. But things like 5 Flesh Hounds for $55, in my opinion, are already overpriced. So it makes it seem like you're getting $300 worth of models for $168, which is a massive savings. But realistically, it's just because the individual components are on the pricey side. And aside from the Chaos box, and then also the Combat Patrol Tyranids, there's really not a ton of value in these box sets. The Tyranid box set is still a really nice deal, but to tell you the truth, it's close to $300 in MSRP value, but you're still better off buying the Tyranid half of Leviathan or one of the starter sets because it includes the complete Combat Patrol and a bunch of other stuff, and you can get it for a far better deal. So overall, I would say that the price increases are a net negative for Combat Patrol on top of the shrinkflation. And then because this is an entry-level product, it substantially increases the bar for people getting started in either the game altogether or a new faction. Now a quick message from today's sponsor. CMO Games has been selling Games Workshop products online for over 20 years. They carry the full line of Games Workshop products, including Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, Necromunda, Blood Bowl, paint tools, and more. Almost all Games Workshop products are priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games takes pre-orders for most Games Workshop products released at their earliest date possible. 12:01 a.m. on Saturday, they go live. Most of these pre-order products are also priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games offer free shipping in the US 48 with an order of $50 or more. Their customer service is top-notch and they ship most orders within 24 hours. Visit CMOGames.com using the affiliate link in the description and let them know that you heard about CMO Games from Warhammer Man. Now, back to the video. All right, so moving on from there, we'll take a look at Space Marines, as I know the prices pretty well, and it's sort of like just a generic faction that everybody kind of knows, and we can get an idea as to what the actual price increases reflect on for like the overall range. So the actual codexes, the regular codexes, did not go up in price, which is definitely good. Now they have gone up recently over like the last couple years to $60 a piece, but to tell you the truth, they do come with the digital code now, so it's always going to be updated and you're going to have the most recent points. You can also use the Warhammer app, which is nice. And realistically, you can typically pick up just the code if you're only looking to go digital for somewhere around like 25 or 30 bucks, or you can buy the actual codex and then sell your code and get back half of what you paid for it. So overall, that's nice that they didn't go up in price, as again, that's like a necessity for starting a new army. So if you were going to pick up a combat patrol for $168 and then a codex on top of that, you're talking about like $228 right off the bat, just to have like an entry level starting little force. All right, and then moving on from there, we've seen like the big characters. Guilliman was previously priced at 65 bucks. He's now 70, more in line with like the other stuff in the range that has come out after him. But it's definitely a nice size price increase going from 65 to 70 and far more than the 3 to 5% Games Workshop advertised. Next, we have Calgar at 62.50. He's unique because he is a character set, so he comes with the 2 extra models. He's also a lot of points for value. So like you might spend $62 on him, but at 185 points, you're getting around 3 points per dollar, which is far more than you get from a lot of the other factions, especially like the Horde stuff. All right, and then moving on from there, we see some of the other special characters and some of their like various pricing for individual characters. The chunky characters now, like the Terminator Librarian, 40 bucks. Uriel Ventress, a special character, $42, and then Chief Librarian Tigerius, 45 bucks for him. So we see a little variance in the prices, typically based on like size or if they're a special character. But the real one that jumps out to me is the Ultramarines Primaris upgrades. So they were previously priced at $15 and they went up to $19. So that's a $4 price increase. So Games Workshop advertised like 3 to 5% price increases, but 4 on 15 is much closer to like a 25% price increase. So some things went up none, other things went up by as much as 25%. So I'm not saying Games Workshop's a liar when they advertise 3 to 5% price increases, but clearly they lied. So you can make your own conclusion. All right, and then moving on from there, we have the Kill Team, Phobos Strike Team. So this is basically just your infiltrators and then an extra sprue on top. 70 bucks for this, more in line with what you see from like the regular Kill Team sets now. Previously priced at 65 bucks, so already a little pricey, but it's 70. Kill Team is no longer like a super cheap game that you can get into. Heavy Intercessors had already moved up to 65 bucks, so no change on them. Things like the Honor the Chapter character pack, if you consider what this costs now at $168, and then consider when Indomitus came out, the whole box set was $200 and came with all this stuff, plus a rulebook, plus an entire Necron force, plus a bunch more Space Marines. This is a massive price increase over the last couple of years. But because it's the only way to get a hold of these models, I guess Games Workshop justifies it. Next, we have Primaris Eradicators, 60 bucks for those, so they didn't go up in price technically with this price increase, but realistically, things like Blade Guard and Eradicators, like the Elite Infantry that only comes in 3s, are basically $20 a model now, where in the past you would get Elite Infantry for like 5 for 60 bucks. So realistically, it's just another case of shrinkflation. And same thing with Eliminators and Eradicators. They didn't actually go up in price. Most of the 3-man units have already been hit with like the price increase by decreasing how many models you get in a set and like squad sizes. So we didn't actually see like much price increase on them. Same with the Aggressors as well. But something like the Reavers were previously priced 10 of them for 60 bucks. So we see a $2.50 price increase on those. So much more in line with what Games Workshop advertised and tends to be like the standard for the 10-man regular infantry units. All right, and then next we have like the Centurion Devastators. So those went up by a couple bucks. I'm also hesitant to buy stuff like that because it's likely to get phased out. Hopefully they don't get rid of them because they're kind of a unique unit, but you never know because they are technically like old school Marines. And then we have the actual Infiltrators. Again, we're seeing that $2.50 price increase. Things like the Scouts that are like a recent release didn't actually go up in price. They were already priced at 65 bucks for 10, which arguably is actually cheaper than what they used to be because the old models came in 5s and they were $35 a piece. So to buy 10 of them would be 70. So in all actuality, things like that aren't necessarily a bad deal relative to what they could have been or if they were sold in 5s. Heroes of the Chapter for 112 only went up by a couple bucks, but realistically, you're better off just buying the Space Marine half of Leviathan for that price and getting a ton more models included. Terminator Squad didn't go up in price, 65 bucks for 5 models, but we did see when they released this kit initially a couple months ago that it actually already went up by $5, so it's kind of already baked in. Furnace Marines are still $60, but this is an easy to build kit and the only way they're offered. So there's no like sergeant options or anything like that. You have very limited poses, and realistically this was overpriced from the start at $60 in my opinion. So I'm definitely glad that they didn't go up in price, but again, you're much better off with one of the starter sets or Leviathan if you're after them. And then moving on, we have Company Heroes. We're already priced at $65, didn't go up. We have the Stern Guard Veterans. We're priced at $60, went to $62.50. Jump Pack Intercessors priced at $60, already more expensive than they should be. And then we get into the vehicles. Was priced at $75, went up to $79, so that's a $4 price increase, so closer to like 5%. The Repulsor Executioner was $112, so that went up by $3. The Primaris Repulsor Regular was $90, went up by $2. The Redemptor Dreadnought was $75, went up by $4. The Impulsor is definitely one that just screams insanity, as it was already $80 and went up by another $4. Drop Pod was $55, went to $58. The regular Ultramarines upgrade pack was $15 and went to $16.50, so they definitely increased the price of the Primaris set far more than the old Ultramarine set. And arguably this one's cooler with like some different head options, but doesn't include as many of like the Primaris like style shoulder pads. Whirlwind went up by $5 to $70. Ballistus Dreadnought came out at $70 and was already overpriced. Brutalis was $75, went to $80. And then things like the Land Raiders were already expensive. It was $112 for a Redeemer before, now they're $115. So it's only a $3 price increase, which is like 2.5%. But it's one of the most expensive models that they sell for Space Marines. The regular Land Raider was $90. It is online only and went to $92. Predator was $70, went up to $75. And Vindicator was $70, went to $75. And the Storm Raven gunship was $112 and went to $125. So overall, because the Space Marines got a recent range refresh and a lot of newer releases, some of the price increases have already been baked in. Most of the 3-man elite units didn't go up in price, but then we see some of the things have went up substantially more. So I guess if you average it out across the entire range, realistically, it did go up by about 3 to 5%. But this is the first time we've seen Games Workshop raise prices and not just put it on everything. So like I, for instance, was surprised that the codexes didn't go up, but pleasantly surprised. And I'm sure over time, we're going to notice some of the items in various ranges that have went up substantially, other items that didn't go up that are still a great deal. But realistically, I think the biggest hit that Games Workshop did to the hobby, to new gaming, is raising the price on entry-level products. And not to specifically single out the Combat Patrol Space Marines, but this is basically the worst box you can buy. It's $168 for the set. It's all easy to build miniatures, which means they're worse and have less options. They all came in recent starter sets, and at $168, you save almost nothing on this. So the Space Marine box set is basically the worst possible deal. If you were to purchase the individual models, you could get the full-on kit for the Terminators for $65. Half a squad of Infernus Marines would be $30. There's only one Terminator Librarian, he's $40. And then $44 for the full-on Captain, not the easy-to-build one included in this set. So you get $179 worth of models in this box set. They're easy to build instead of like the fully posable ones with all the weapon options, and it's $168. So at this point in time, the Space Marine Combat Patrol saves you $11 and you get worse models with less options. So there's literally no reason to buy this. And while this is the worst Combat Patrol out of all of them based on value, it definitely reflects the direction the Games Workshop is going towards, and it's definitely not good. So let me know what you think of the new price increases. Did you notice any in particular that were grievous that I didn't mention? Do you think it's a bad idea for Games Workshop to raise the prices for entry products when in all reality they make the majority of their money selling you the individual kits afterwards? And getting rid of the idea of like a loss leader or really good value product to get you started in the hobby and then make their money later definitely appears like they're catering to people that are going to buy like 1 or 2 things and not necessarily expand out the hobby, as opposed to the people that are going to buy a bunch of stuff over time and then giving them a better initial deal. Always like to hear back from you guys in the comments. Special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring the channel. Check out the link in the description to save 15% on Games Workshop products. Make sure to tell them that Warhammer Man sent you. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and while the price increases aren't as bad as Games Workshop has done in the past, they definitely made some bad decisions. And I'm out of here.